how we can find undervalued assets like stocks and real estate. Also, is buying blue chip stocks nowadays worth it? Yeah. So I subscribe to the Warren Buffett financial outlook process of being long-term focused. The longer the view, the wiser the intention. When Warren Buffett buys a stock, he thinks and assumes the market might be closed for 10 years. Now, of course, he knows the market's not going to be closed for 10 years, but that thought process helps him be very long-term focused. You don't want to be a tourist in a stock. You don't want to rent stocks, because if you're short-term focused, you'll lose your shirt. There's no such thing as a trader that's been successful in the long run. Otherwise, we'd know their names. They don't exist. Each month has 20 trading days, meaning 20 weekdays. And the reason stocks go up and down within 20 days, for the most part, is for reasons outside of your control, like geopolitical events. Maybe it's saber rattling in the commodity sector between Riyadh and Moscow. Maybe it's talk of a trade war because there's saber rattling or comments going back and forth between Beijing and DC. Maybe the stocks are going up and down that you own because a similar company in that sector reported positive or negative news. So you've got to be very, very long-term focused. And so when it comes to buying stocks or assets in general, you've got to be a contrarian. Be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy, as Mr. Buffett says. And you got to buy when there's blood in the streets. And I know that sounds harsh, but if you buy investments that everybody else owns right now and everyone else loves right now, then who's the incremental investor that's going to buy that investment and push it higher? There's not that many incremental investors left. And so what I recommend doing is buying when everyone's freaking out. I love to buy broken stocks, but not broken companies. And yes, it feels uncomfortable to buy when the market is selling off big time. But you've got to harness that level of uncomfort you feel deep down, that nervousness, those butterflies, and go against the grain. Be a contrarian and watch your net worth take off. It's kind of like when you're buying a house. Don't overextend yourself too much, but if you don't feel at least a little bit uncomfortable when you're buying a house or an apartment, you haven't bought enough house or apartment. You got to be long-term focused. It's kind of like when you buy a computer, and we've all bought computers, and we've been cheap when it comes to the memory it has or disk drive space. And then a year later, you're like, damn it, I wish I'd spent more money on a bigger drive. So anyway, just be a contrarian and think very, very long-term in terms of understanding if something is over or undervalued. Well, what I do is I'm so long-term focused that people look at certain stocks, like Amazon, LinkedIn, when it was public, and they would say to me, Chris, you're crazy for owning those stocks because they're 100 times earnings. And I would say, no, they're 3 times earnings. And they would say what? I would say, well, I built out my financial model, which I teach about in my classes and my MBA degree program. I built out my financial model, and the earnings expectations or my earnings estimates in 5 or 10 years are so high that the company's price divided by earnings is 3 times earnings or 4 times earnings. It's cheap. And so that will make you very disciplined and long-term focused, so that if a stock drops a lot and you just started buying it, you're happy it's dropping, even though you're losing money on it a bit because you don't have a full position yet, because then you can back up the truck. Be very, very long-term focused, because the bottom line is the longer the view, the wiser the intention. And Wayne Gretzky, fellow Canadian and the best hockey player ever, he was successful not because he skated to where the puck is. Rather, he would always skate to where the puck is going to be. And by the same token, I want you to buy investments that people are going to like. And I want you to be very, very long-term focused.